Welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast, where you'll learn how to soar above your competition. And now, your host, Yuri Vilk.
Hello and welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast. My name is Yuri Vilk. I'm here with Rich Hopkins. He's a blogger, an author, a speaker. He placed third in the 2006 championships of the World Championships of Toastmasters. And he's also got 6 kids and wrote a book. That's quite a lot for somebody your age, Rich. Now, he wrote a book called Go Ahead and Laugh, The Serious Guide to Speaking with Humor. And we're going to talk about a topic that he's not only very passionate about, but something that he teaches people to get on stage and show them who they really are. The topic of today is Don't Just Speak, Speak and Deliver with Rich Hopkins. Now, Rich, what do you mean by speak and deliver? Now, I understand you've gone over this topic numerous times on your blog, which we'll put a link in for everybody to see at the bottom of this podcast. But what is it that you actually mean by speak and deliver?
Well, a lot of people can speak. And a lot of people don't speak well, but then they go to Toastmasters and they get themselves trained to speak. Speak and deliver is about taking it to the next level. Because it's one thing to speak, it's another to actually deliver your message with impact, the kind of impact that is going to change your audience. And so that's why I preach speak and deliver and teach people not just to overcome their fear of public speaking, but to put together their best messages and to find the best ways for them to deliver those messages from stage.
Yeah, and I know public speaking is one of the world's biggest fears. It's a very intense situation when you're up on stage in front of thousands of people, which you have experience with, and that's sort of that really difficult thing for a lot of people to understand is how do you get in front of people without getting nervous, without having the sort of breakout. And I just want to know, what was that first thing that got you into public speaking, and what got you on stage? What was that whole idea? Why did you want to get on stage to begin with?
Girls.
Well, that makes sense.
The first time I got on stage was drama in college.
Okay.
And I actually was helping a girl that I liked a lot in college practice her English accent for an Agatha Christie play she was trying out for. And when we went to tryouts, she demanded that I try out as well. I ended up with the lead part in that play, and she didn't get cast. It was a bit of a short relationship, but it got me on stage, and that was really where it began, was me in front of a bunch of people, not saying what I wanted to say, but saying the lines of Agatha Christie, moving around on stage where the director told me to go. And then it moved on from there, going from drama in college to becoming an outside salesperson after graduating, going door to door, talking to a lot of people, and then eventually finding my way to Toastmasters again because of a woman who invited me to her Toastmasters club. And Toastmasters lasted 17 years.
Wow.
The friendship with that gal did not last nearly as long. But I've been in Toastmasters for that 17 years. And what Toastmasters did was give me an opportunity to get on stage in a very supportive environment, non-judgmental environment, and instead of talking about what the playwright told me to say or what my company told me to say as a salesperson, I got a chance to finally express myself, my own thoughts and feelings, and getting that opportunity is extremely important. If you know you can go someplace and not be judged, you're going to have a lot easier time of overcoming that fear of public speaking.
Okay, so Toastmasters helped you kind of get out there and basically allowed you a platform for you to practice getting out in front of people and in a supportive environment. So for those who aren't really familiar with Toastmasters, what is the organization? What is Toastmasters?
Sure. Well, Toastmasters is one of the best kept secrets, but it's been around for almost 90 years, actually I think last year was its 90th year anniversary. It was started as an organization really to help young men get together and overcome their fear of public speaking. It's grown to a worldwide organization with several 100,000 members all over the world. Its fastest growing markets right now are actually India and China. So you can go to a Toastmasters club pretty much anywhere in the world. All you need to do is go to toastmasters.org, and there's a little Find a Club feature in the upper left-hand corner of that website. Put in your zip code and find some clubs that are near you. Visit them, find out what they're like. They're all a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
They all follow the same program,
Right.
but they have slightly different cultures based on who the members are, maybe what time they meet. Sometimes there's an hour-long club that meets at lunchtime, and they're very corporate and very organized because they have a limited amount of time. Other clubs are meeting in the evening for maybe an hour and a half or even 2 hours. They're a little bit more laid back, a little bit more diverse. So, and really there's all sorts of clubs. So go out and find out what works for you.
Okay. So Toastmasters is an international organization that allows you that platform that you're allowed to create your message and help craft your stage presentation so that you don't have to have that fear of public speaking. So if I'm a business person and I'm a business owner, and what does public speaking mean to me? Why would I care about that?
Well, public speaking as a business owner is how you sell. I mean, even if you don't consider public speaking as part of what you do, you're doing it just by getting in a sales conversation, by being behind the counter and talking to a customer, by getting on the phone and talking to someone about using your services. Public speaking is nothing more than conversation.
Okay.
What we think of as public speaking that we're all afraid of is just a conversation in front of more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
In front of maybe 5 or 10 if you're giving a presentation to a small group, or upwards of 5 or 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And anywhere in between. But what people need to remember is that you are only talking to each person one-on-one. They only hear you. So it's a one-on-one conversation to them. You're the one who has to change that perception in your brain so you don't feel like you're talking to 2,000 people or 50 people.
Right.
Just talking to them each individually. When you understand that, you can get over that fear. But why it's important for a business person is because if you can go from talking to just one person to talking to 25 at a time, what's your conversion rate? When you speak to a potential customer, when you speak to 10 of them, how many of them do you convert?
Mm-hmm.
If you convert 3 out of 10 of them, and you can go speak to 25 people all at once, then you're getting 6 to 8 every time you go to speak. Instead of having to speak 10 times for 3, you're speaking 1 time for 6 to 8.
Yeah, and as internet marketers, I think we're all too familiar with what conversion rate is and kind of like what it is, how do you optimize all your web presence. But something we've really failed to realize is when you're actually in front of an audience and you're speaking, you have that the same concept of conversion rate. You're still trying to sell a product, a service, or even your self-image to a larger audience than just one person at a time. Because like you said, when you started with your door-to-door sales, you're doing one at a time. Imagine if you brought all those people into one room, you did a single presentation, you not only would be done a lot faster with your day, but you would most likely sell a lot more and a higher quantity as well as a higher quality of service to a larger audience all at once. It's like the best of everything. So
your perception is completely changed as well. When you're in front of an audience, you are given almost automatic credibility.
Yeah,
People
definitely.
see you as obviously brave enough to get in front of the group, which most people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And by the very fact that you've been given that platform, you must know what you're talking about. Anybody can have a website, but not anybody will be willing to get up and go speak.
Right.
Anybody can pay anybody else to build their funnel online, but you don't typically pay somebody else to go up and pretend they are you in front of 25 prospects.
Unless you have an evil twin.
Evil twins are nice. I have not found mine yet.
Yeah, when you find yours, let me know. I'm looking for one too. Now, Rich, you did touch on something that's very important, and I think that when you start public speaking or when you start doing presentations in front of audiences, I think many business owners, as well as just regular individuals, bloggers, what have you, I think they fail to realize that really key point that you're actually just talking to one person at a time. And that's something that I feel when you're up on stage, it's really hard to wrap your head around, something that you're not actually speaking in front of a large audience. You're speaking to each individual one at a time, and that's where you get the most powerful message delivered. In other words, I've seen you speak, and that isn't you touch every single person, well, not physically, thankfully, but you actually elicit emotions from every single person in that room simultaneously. What is that? How are you actually? First off, when did you figure this one out, and how do you get that? How do you make that work for anybody who's in front of an audience? How do you actually get that emotional connection one-on-one?
The emotional connection comes mostly from eye contact.
Okay.
And really being able to look at your audience, but instead of looking at them corporately, where you scan the room, which is oftentimes what we're taught, just scan the room or look at the back of the room, up at the clock, so it looks like you're looking at everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But actually looking at an individual. Because when you focus on one person and you give them 3 to 5 seconds of eye contact, you connect with that person, but you also connect with all the people that are immediately around that person, because some of them can't tell if you're looking at them or that person, depending on the size of the crowd. If you have 10 people, it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 200, not so much.
Right.
You know who you're looking at, but they don't necessarily know who you're looking at. And then if you're looking over at the left side of your audience, the right side of the audience wants in on it. And they'll kind of lean in over here to see what they're missing. And then you switch and you go from person to person and you tell your important points to one person at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You're still telling everybody, but by telling that one person,
Mm-hmm.
you're building that connection. You're bringing everybody in closer to you.
That's a very key piece of information. So instead of what we're usually taught in school or in college to kind of scan the room or stare at the back of the room, you're individually connecting with you're looking at each person as if they're the only person in the room and delivering that message to them and them only. And as a side product of that, you're getting, or byproduct of that, you're getting everyone else to listen and try to pay attention to what are you actually saying to that one person. They want to hear it. Natural curiosity will elicit those sort of responses from people where they're trying to actually listen in or sort of eavesdrop on everyone else's conversation. But in reality, you're actually doing a public presentation. So that's a very, very key piece of information. I think very many people who get in front of the stage and get in front of an audience don't ever consider that you should actually, feel that relationship with that one-on-one individual, with that person that's just there sitting and watching you present. So
one of the reasons that happens, Yuri, is because when we're on stage, the more beginning a speaker you are, the more concerned you are with yourself.
Right.
Instead of your audience.
Right.
So you're not thinking about connecting with your audience, you're trying to remember your material.
Right.
You're trying to make sure that you're getting everything out, and you're worried that you don't look good, that maybe you're not moving on stage right, you're worried that the audience is bored. Once you get out of yourself, once you master your message enough that you can start really worrying about the audience more, that's when that connection is going to happen, and when you're going to be able to use that eye contact and deliver with more power.
That makes sense. So you just need to master your material to get to a point where you're kind of the same concept with customer service. You're trying to get outside of your own sphere so you can look outside of it and say, hey, how can I actually help somebody else? How can I actually deliver that message and attract that audience, get them understanding where I'm coming from, so that you're not necessarily focused on your own ego. You're focused on the outside, not internal, external. Very good information, Rich. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, you did mention earlier you were a coach, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so
what? Emerging keynoters for the most part.
Okay, very good.
That's where I focus. Somebody who maybe has been speaking in Toastmasters or has had a job for a long time, and they want to take the expertise that they have out into the world.
Right.
And so we get together and we help. We write their speech. We find what it is they truly want to talk about, determine how what they want to talk about is going to benefit a potential audience, and then write a keynote around that.
Okay.
Then we start working on where are you going to deliver this, how are you going to market yourself, how are you going to monetize this.
Okay.
But it all starts with what do you want to talk about, followed by who's going to pay for it.
Okay.
Because unless you're independently wealthy, you need to know who's going to foot the bill for what you really want to talk about.
Yep. That's another interesting point there. So you can take your speaking career starting with an organization like Toastmasters and then start making a profit off of it, which I think, again, that's just another side of the business. You not only have, if you own a business and you're already operating something, maybe you're already delivering a very good message to somebody, you can also have the floor for public speaking and get paid for it too, which is, I think many business owners don't see, the value in public speaking because they don't see, well, what's the return on investment? And you just said it, with somebody like a coach who can actually guide you through the process, somebody who's done it before, been there, they can guide you through the whole process and get you to a point where you do have a return on investment for your stage presence. What's a typical process for your coaching? Like, what is it? Where do we start with the ideas? How do we start? What? Just give us like a little outline of how you start with your coaching program and how we can get started with getting to that point of return on investment and profitability for the business owner.
Well, my first real conversation is a free consultation.
Okay.
So that I can find out if the potential client and I are a good match, if we can work in the same ways, if we have temperaments that are going to work well together.
Okay.
And to do some discovery about them and what's their experience, what do they want to go out and talk about, and how open are they to suggestions just within that first half an hour.
Okay.
And then after we decide that we want to work together, that next session, the big session, is what do you want to talk about and why? Why do you want to talk about? Why are you an expert in that? What do you have to offer the audience from what it is you want to talk about?
Sure.
Why do I want to hear you? And maybe I don't want to hear you, but maybe this specific audience wants to hear you.
Sure.
And then it's a matter of starting there, working through a keynote outline that I've developed over the years and putting that together based on a lot of storytelling, because we hear points, but we remember stories.
Mm-hmm.
When we remember stories, we remember points.
Right.
So using that type of a process to communicate what it is you want to talk about is going to help you reach your audience. But it's different for everybody. It's tough for me to tell you exactly
Sure.
what happens, because I get emerging speakers that sometimes the first thing we have to do is help them overcome their fear of public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's as far as advanced as they've already had a keynote that isn't working as well as they want, and we have to transform it into something new.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere in between.
Okay, that makes sense. And so you mentioned something, you touched on this earlier, and that's sort of, you help people understand the value that you can bring to an audience. And what is that process like? Like, okay, so I'm, let's say I work in the field all day. I'm a single business owner. I have some clients here and there, but what value could I bring to the world from that? Like, how can I actually promote something useful to an audience, and why would somebody want to listen to me?
Well, if that is your interest, if that's your passion, is that you've been out in the field for 40 years and you now want to share your experiences with other people,
mm-hmm.
then that's valuable, because you can go talk to people who have been out in the field for 6 months and don't have the experience that you had for those extra 39 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
And you shorten their learning curve.
Okay.
And you help them avoid painful situations that you have learned from. Can you give them strategies that are guaranteed to work because you have been using them for so long? You've seen what doesn't work and what does work.
Mm-hmm.
So that, really going and talking to yourself when you just got started. Whoever is you now at the beginning is your potential audience.
That makes sense. So you're using it as a platform for almost teaching something very, very profound to somebody who's just getting started. And
Right.
there's your audience. I mean, and there's your topic. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, well, what can I possibly be speaking on? Technically we're all experts in our own way. We just have sometimes a difficult time seeing it because we're too stuck in our own heads. But those people who we interact with and those people who we speak with would love to know how we got to where we are. That's sort of the key. And so from what I understand, you just want to share this information with the world, and more than likely somebody is going to hear that and they're going to pay you to listen to more of that information. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And what I gave you is a fairly straightforward,
Sure.
easy situation. Then I have the people who spent 40 years out selling, but they want to talk about their hobby, which is quilting.
Yeah.
And they want to go talk to the world about quilting. And so we have to decide, well, are you going to talk to a bunch of quilters? Is that going to be your audience? Or do you want to use quilting as a metaphor when you go talk about leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to combine quilting and the metaphor of quilting with being that salesperson that you've been for 40 years, but bringing in that aspect of your life?
Right.
There's a lot of massaging that you have to do with people depending on what they come to you with, what passions they have, and what they think they want to talk about is often different than what the world is willing to pay for.
Sure.
So you kind of have to help them meet their audience and their paycheck halfway.
Sure. I imagine the audience for quilters is not going to be a very profitable niche to go down because, well, I don't know much about quilting, but I imagine they just don't have the budget to afford a $10,000 or $15,000 speaker to talk about quilting.
Right.
But for corporate sales, I know for a fact they have a big budget for sales training, and they definitely have a budget for leadership, and they have that those are large topics. So if I was a person and had 40 years of sales experience, I like the idea of the metaphor, combining your hobby with something that you've already done, because that way you can actually find a good audience that'll pay you. And that's what really we're in for is, we want to figure out a strategy to get this, to speak and deliver a message to get paid. So what can a business owner do today? Let's say, we're just trying to figure this out. First time you've ever heard of, obviously public speaking's been on the forefront for a long time now, but first time being exposed to it, what is something that a business owner can get started with today? Like, how can we actually get going on this? And what can I do to strategize and create my first speech?
Yeah, well, I've already talked about Toastmasters.
Yeah.
It's a place you want to go and check out if you want to learn how to be a better speaker.
Sure.
At kind of a slow pace. It's a learn at your own pace program, and it could take you a year or 5 to get to where you want to go, but it's at least an opportunity to start.
Okay.
You don't want to go that route. If you're saying, okay, well, I want to go speak to an audience right now, what I suggest is you go pick up the book The Message of You by Judy Carter. It's got a great little system on how to write a speech. If you don't want to go to The Message of You, look me up on speakanddeliver.com and look up some of the tips and tricks I've got on public speaking over the past 7 years. I think I've been running that blog, maybe longer.
Wow.
Or give me a call and we can start talking about that. If you think you have a speech and you just want to get out there and start giving it,
Mm-hmm.
the best places for you to start and the lowest risk for you are service clubs like Rotary and Kiwanis and Lions and Optimist clubs. They're all over the place. You've got somebody in the morning, somebody at noon, oftentimes somebody in the evening, every week that is desperate for a free speaker. And you can call them up, tell them what topic you want to talk about, go out, talk to them, film yourself, record yourself, and see what you're doing so that you can kind of get a barometer
Sure.
of how you're performing, see what kind of interest you get from that. And then after you've mastered that to a point, maybe you've done it for 3 to 6 months, you've spoken 30 to 60 times, then start looking at associations that are going to be filled with people that you do want to talk to.
Mhm.
Very targeted people, the salespeople, If you're a medical, if you want to talk on medical aspects, go find a nurses association or doctors association. I mean, the medical field is huge. There's an association for every possible specialty.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to talk about leadership, what kind of leadership do you want to talk about? Who do you want to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that outside salesperson? Is it the medical community? Is it more of a corporate environment? You got to find your audience.
Sure.
But you want to start in a low-risk situation. And both Toastmasters and service clubs are low risk.
Yeah.
If you really want to get started and reduce your learning curve, find a coach. And there's a whole bunch of coaches out there that are going to be local. If you look up how do I choose a speaking coach, I've got a blog post on that I wrote a few years ago on
Sure.
what you want to look for in a speaking coach, because not every coach is right for everybody. Not every situation works in the same way as another would.
Sure. Well, Rich, I mean, I'm sure you could find a local coach in your area, but do you do virtual consultations as well? Could you do is there a way you can do a virtual course for virtual coaching for somebody who would be interested in working with you, perhaps?
Oh, certainly. I mean, virtually none of my clients are here in Denver.
Okay.
You're never a prophet in your own hometown.
Perfect.
While I do have several clients here in Denver, I work with people all over the world, and
Great.
Usually it's the same way we're doing this podcast, over Skype or over the phone, and a lot of video coaching where they send me their videos, and we get on the phone and we go over their videos while we're talking on the phone.
Wow.
I mean, it's an electronic world.
Yeah.
My client in Korea might as well be my client in Littleton.
That's impressive. So worldwide clients, you're definitely leveraging technology to get your word out there as well, and to help others kind of along the way. Rich, you mentioned something kind of important to me earlier, and that is the concept of value. One thing that I find difficult for keeping your audience engaged is that message. Sometimes we get in front of audiences, and you said that they sometimes may get bored. What is something that you can make sure that you're delivering a good value statement so that your audience is engaged?
Well, the key to your value statement is your pain statement.
Sure.
You have to let that audience know that they're in pain. Most of them will know it, but they don't want to think about it, so you have to remind them. Other people don't know it, and so you have to pick it out a little bit, and point it out, get them to feel it, and help them understand that you are identifying this pain because you yourself have experienced this pain, and you know how to overcome this pain.
Mm-hmm.
So if a doctor comes to you and says, "Wow, I see that bullet wound in you, and I can fix it." And hey, if they say they've had a bullet wound at one point, that gives them even added credibility. But you're going to let that doctor fix it, and you're going to be very intent on learning how it is, especially if they say, you're going to have to go back out there in the field and get shot again, but you're not going to be able to necessarily come back to me all the time. You want to be able to do this yourself. That's what a speaker does. They identify somebody's pain, and then they give them a process to overcome that pain and have victory in the end, success, whatever that is, whether it be a great life, whether it be a better bottom line, whether it be a better bikini line. No matter what it is, there has to be a result that they cannot get currently because of whatever this obstacle or pain is that is in their way.
Okay, so how does somebody identify the pain of their audience? Like I understand you start with the Rotary clubs and maybe small organizations. Will they tell you kind of what they want to hear? Will they give you feedback on that? And is that how you can kind of fine-tune your message at that point?
Well, when you go to a Rotary club, you're not there so much to solve their pain as you are there to practice your speech.
Got it. Okay.
So when you go to an association, you want to solve their pain. But what you have is a targeted audience where you know their pain. If we go back to our guy who's been out there in the field for 40 years, he knows exactly what pain he had to deal with, and he knows who's going through that pain right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he can go find those people to talk to. And those people are going to be relatively the same, whether they're working for a computer firm or a law firm or an accounting firm or a media advertising newspaper, if newspapers even exist anymore, type of an outlet. All industries tend to have similar situations, similar workforces within them that are going to match the kind of pain you've dealt with for 40 years. So it's a matter of creating that speech, creating that process, and then tailoring it just a little bit. So you don't have to give a new speech every time, because the answer is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You just might tell it in a different way. You might change a story here or there, and you might change terminology to match the fact that you're talking to an accounting firm versus a tech firm versus a manufacturing firm.
Okay. So it's just minor modifications to the message, but ultimately, as you mentioned, most associations are going to have similar issues that they're dealing with, and you just got to fine-tune your message for that particular demographic and that particular niche focus of that association.
Exactly.
Very interesting. So where do we find associations? Do you know any good resources to locate these bodies that you can go speak to?
The best resource I've found for associations is www.asaecenter.org, which is a directory of associations nationwide.
Wow. Okay. Great. So it's going to be a place where we can literally just start finding any one of these, any association in any industry.
Right. It's got a search function.
Great.
So you can look by topic, by area. And the way associations work is you could have, say, an association of administrative assistants.
Sure.
And there'll be a chapter in Denver. There'll be a chapter up in Boulder. There'll be a chapter in Colorado Springs. And then they may have a state chapter that all those smaller chapters are a part of. Then they might have a regional meeting, a regional get-together, and then a national get-together. And some will even have a worldwide get-together, depending on the association.
Okay.
And oftentimes, if you speak to the niche association in Denver, it will maybe not pay you a tremendous amount of money if it pays you at all, but you do a good job. You solve their problem, and you can end up speaking for the other niche associations or chapters and up to their district or region meeting or their national meeting.
Sure.
And those are the bigger paydays. But the key is each one of those administrative assistants works for a real company, and you can get referred into that company. So if you speak to the local chapter of administrative assistants and there are 25 people in attendance, you're speaking to somebody who has influence in 25 different companies.
Wow. That's impressive. So that one speech could trigger a whole series of events for you. All you got to do is get out there and get in front of them.
Exactly.
Very good. So, Rich, we've been talking on a very serious note, kind of how if I'm a business owner, just a newbie to the field or whatever I'm trying to do, it's great to kind of get involved in public speaking, and we definitely realize that. I want to kind of pivot here and discuss your book on a more jovial side. Why did you decide to write a book on laughter, and what was your concept behind that? What was that motivation, and what did that feel like for you?
Well, people had always told me that I was a funny speaker, that I used humor. That seems to be something I get told all the time.
Great.
And I don't work tremendously hard at that, which makes me a lousy person to teach people how to use humor.
Okay.
So what I did was create a book where I collected speeches from other people. There are, I believe, 13 speeches in that book from 13 other professional speakers that are all humorous in one way or another. Some are specifically only humorous. Others are more corporate-type speeches with humor in them. And then I picked apart those speeches to identify how humor was used by that speaker, whether it was used well or how they could have used it better, and collected them all into one volume called Go Ahead and Laugh, a serious guide to speaking with humor. that collects all these different strategies, shows you practical usages of them, and talks to you about how you can apply them to your own speaking.
Okay.
Because you can learn how to be funny. And really, it isn't even learning how to be funny. It's learning how to recognize that you already are funny. And probably the more non-funny you think you are, the more funny you are to the people around you.
So inadvertently, in a regular speech where you think you're being really serious, you can have a moment where you make everybody laugh, and it could be unintentional. But if you figure out a way to make it intentional, what's the value in humor with a speech? If I'm this really serious salesperson, or if I'm getting started with a business, what's the point of laughter? Why would I want to make my audience laugh?
Well, the point of laughter in a speech is also the point where your audience is most connected, most willing to listen to what you're saying next, and to learn what it is you're saying.
Okay.
Now, if we're all serious, then we might as well be back in high school and college getting lectured at. I mean, who do you remember most as your favorite teachers growing up? They were usually the ones that made you laugh in one way or another.
Yeah, definitely.
So you enjoyed that. Well, why wouldn't we enjoy it now? So once you can learn why you're funny, you can use that. And the key is that it's not adding humor.
Okay.
It's finding the humor that's already there.
Great, yeah. Very good. So the speeches that somebody would get going for like their company, they can find, what you're saying is that they could literally find humor and get that message read across even more clearly to their audience, because I guess when we're laughing, our guard is down, and we're able to be ourselves, be human again. And that's sort of the key. That's a very good takeaway, Rich. That if you can figure out a way to make your presentation very, not necessarily even intentionally funny, but just funny in the sense that it has that good feeling. People will associate the good feeling with you and your presentation, and therefore you'll have that sort of different perspective and different side of the message than most other speakers do not have. So you'll be able to set yourself apart and become a really prominent speaker in that regard. What is one more thing that we can do to just get going today? I know there's probably a whirlwind of thoughts going through. There's definitely a whirlwind of thoughts going through my head. But what is one more thing that somebody can actually do to get involved and start speaking? I mean, do you feel that maybe webcams or video conferencing or maybe even YouTube videos is a good way to get started and get a good message out there?
That is certainly a good way to get a message out there. It depends on what your comfort level is.
Sure.
Usually, if you're too afraid to go to Toastmasters, getting in front of your webcam is going to scare you to death.
Yeah.
And you're going to create a whole bunch of videos that you're just going to delete. If you really want to take a chance, I suggest going out on Periscope.
Okay.
Because chances are you're not popular enough for more than one or two people to see you completely mess up on Periscope.
Sure.
And you can still save those particular Periscopes on Katch, Katch .me, I believe.
Okay.
And they will save those videos for you so they don't just go off into nothingness. So if you have a good one, you can then repurpose that on Facebook or on your blog.
Sure.
That's a good low-risk video way to go. The other, if you want a little bit more of a slow start, I had mentioned Judy Carter's The Message of You.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also go out on Facebook and look at YouTube. Instead of putting yourself on YouTube, go watch other people who are like you. Who's your potential competition? And you'll be amazed at how many people really are just like you, and they're not amazing speakers right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, watch some amazing speakers, but watch the regular people.
Okay.
Because not everybody is Tony Robbins. Most people are just like you and I right now, sitting back in our office, sharing some ideas, sharing our experiences. And that's perfectly fine, because our experiences are just as valuable even if we're not all up in everybody's face on stage.
I like that Tony Robbins bit. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely he has a method, and he's practiced for years, if not decades, to get this fine tuned for his audience, and that energy and that passion. When you're first starting out, and I know that's how it was for me. It was very difficult to figure out, okay, how do I craft a message that'll make people entertained? Am I going to embarrass myself? And the bottom line, I think, is you probably will embarrass yourself, and you will make a fool out of your presentation numerous times. But that's part of the learning curve. We all have been there, right? I mean, Rich, before you were world champion Toastmaster at the 2006 World Champions, where you took third, which I'd love for you to touch on that and kind of how that process worked for you. You started out just like anybody else, right? I mean, you weren't this expert speaker overnight.
No, absolutely not. I mean, when I got involved in Toastmasters, it took me a year to go through their first manual, which is a manual of 10 speeches,
Sure, yeah.
10 different skills to learn. And after I got finished and earned what at that time was called a competent Toastmaster, a CTM, my mentor came up to me and told me that I could be a great speaker if I would just learn how to say something. So I had just spent the last year basically writing my speeches in the car between work and Toastmasters, not putting a lot of preparation time in, but doing well enough because of my experience in drama, because of the fact that I had a job where I had to speak every day, but I hadn't put in enough effort. And it wasn't until I intentionally chose to apply myself to speaking, to focus on my audience, to try to create actual messages that made a difference, that I then began to do so. And I started to compete in the Toastmasters International Speech Contest, which is a worldwide contest that starts with about 35,000 people every year.
Wow.
It culminates in an annual conference where 10 people get up on the final stage with a 7-minute speech, and it's judged. And at the end of that, you have a world champion of public speaking. As you say, in 2006, I was the second runner-up, took third. In 2008, I went back to the finals, and as those of us who don't place like to say, I tied for fourth, along with 6 other people. But getting a chance to do that really gave me some confidence in myself as a speaker. But what I found gave me even more confidence was having other people sending their friends and other Toastmasters to me to coach them.
Wow.
That was how I got my first professional client. Before I ever spoke in the World Championship of Public Speaking, one of my club members sent a man who was visiting our club to me to help him write a Father of the Bride speech.
Wow.
And I charged him $100. We worked together for 2.5 months. Turns out that his Father of the Bride speech was taking place on top of a castle in Vienna, and he ended up paying me $1,000 to give him what he needed for that speech. He just kept handing me a check every time I saw him, and it turned out extremely well. And after that, I realized, wow, I have something to give. I've learned something, and that was 2004. So that was 12 years ago, 2 years before I competed on the world stage. And ever since then, it's just been a matter of what more can I learn? What more can I do? I'm still competing in the International Speech Contest. I'm competing this Saturday to try to go win the World Championship again. I'm at a mid-level.
Wow.
I guess if you're a basketball fan, I'm at the Sweet 16 phase.
The takeaway for today is you got to get yourself out there, get going, do something, and get in front of it. We all have to start somewhere to get in front of an audience to kind of begin our speaking careers. And Rich, your story is so inspirational to myself and to, I'm sure, many other people who listen to you speak, and to kind of watch that transformation from somebody who really didn't have a whole lot of speaking experience to all of a sudden, like, you're already competing and you're doing these amazing things with your speeches. And not only that, I think you're also in the process of writing another book. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm actually starting to put together Speak and Deliver the book.
Perfect.
I've had Speak and Deliver the blog for so long.
Yeah.
And people have been begging me to put that together into a book. So that is my next big project. Look for it this summer.
This summer. All right. So, Rich, I want to thank you so much for today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Really, it's inspirational to hear about your journey and the advice that you can provide for those people who are just starting out. Where can we go to learn a little bit more about your coaching, about your maybe some tools that we can use for public speaking? Where are the resources? And I know the book, Go Ahead and Laugh, is also available on Amazon, and we will provide links for that at the bottom of the page. But where can we go to learn a little bit more about Rich Hopkins?
It's really tough. Go to speakanddeliver.com.
There it is. Perfect.
It'll take you right to my blog. There's a page on there that you can go to find out about my various types of coaching.
Okay.
And even speaking. So if you want to have me come out and speak to your group, you can find me there as well.
Perfect. Rich, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time here today. And again, when we're just starting out, I think the most important thing is just to take some action. So I want to thank you again for coming on the show. And if you have any other resources that you'd like to offer, please feel free to comment on the podcast as users start to put their information on there. So again, thank you so much, and I want to wish you a very, very good day, and hopefully we can see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Yuri. I appreciate being on your podcast.
Thank you.